Paul DuPont, you were talking about this before we even started the show, and the consequences and repercussions of what's happening with the DCCC. Please let our viewers and subscribers know what's going on.
This is a piece of legislation that was put forward by the House. Got buried in another piece of legislation, which I have to remember what that other piece of legislation was. It was something innocuous, which is generally how they do these really nefarious things, is use an innocuous piece of legislation and insert a little bit of language in there. The legislation was basically asking vendors of the DCCC to behave in a particular way, and part of that is a pledge to not support any candidate who is primarying an incumbent candidate. So what they're basically saying is, we are not happy that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won her primary. We're not happy about Ayanna Pressley. We're not happy about Rashida Tlaib. We want to make sure that challengers to Democratic incumbents don't get the support of sort of the donor machine and the lobbyist machine and the people that could help them, the consultant group. There was a great quote in here from someone named Rebecca Katz, who was a longtime Democratic consultant, and she said, the people who can't understand the party is stronger because we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ayanna Pressley in Congress should not be in the business of choosing who can run for Congress. Now, there's no language in this that says that, you can't help someone challenge an incumbent unless that incumbent is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar or Ayanna Pressley. But it's reasonable to assume, or Ro-Khanna, it's reasonable to assume that if and when a centrist establishment-style Democratic candidate seeks to primary one of these people, I'm confident that the DCCC will be happy waiving the rules.
Absolutely.
To let them get their corporatist primarying that. But if it's the other way around, they won't have that support.
Just to add on to that, recently was Tulsi Gabbard. She's being challenged in her district by a more of a centrist candidate.
Yep.
And already the Hawaiian Democratic Party, as well as 3 former Hawaiian governors, are supporting that candidate. And it seems like there's a big movement to really remove Tulsi Gabbard from her congressional seat. So if they're already doing that to Tulsi Gabbard, there should be a big heads up for people like AOC, Ro-Khanna, Ilhan Omar, and all the others who won their progressive races back in 2018.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I wanna take a different angle on this, because I always look at why are they acting this way? Why do they care so much? So I would say that if AOC, Ilhan Omar, everyone else got into Congress and they just kind of went along with whatever happened, this would have never happened. They would have never cared if they were incumbent, just like they've never cared about incumbents. They like incumbents because it bolsters their numbers. The reason that they're doing this is they're scared. That's the reason.
If the paper tiger is reacting.
The paper tiger is reacting. They're still defending that wall, and it is starting to show wear and tear. This is exactly what we would expect to happen if the Democratic Party feels like, oh, these guys are actually succeeding at what they're doing. Not only are they succeeding at what they're doing, they are doing it really quickly, and I'm worried about my seat, because the only reason you would ever do that, because I don't think that maybe they didn't think that people would see it, but I think they also knew that it would get found out, and they know how big their opposition is now. So the DNC and the Democratic Party is actively risking that people will know this is happening, will be angry at this happening, and aware of that, and they know all the people that are going to disseminate this. So they're doing this because they're losing. They're doing this because if they had to fight fair, they already know what's happening when they're going to fight fair. So the only way they can do that is they say, okay, well, these people are clearly winning really well, so what's the only thing we can do? We can try and stop their infrastructure from being put in place by having them not able to hire these really important people and these important groups to help them move their campaign forward. So I think what's going to happen is 2 things. First of all, I'm not sure that this is going to hold. I think that this is a very difficult thing to do, and I think especially if you are someone that gives off these contracts, there's going to be a couple of them that are going to say, look, I want to be on the winning side. I might have to suffer for the next couple years, but they see that these people are replacing them. So that might backfire on the Democratic Party right there. And then on top of that, the other angle is it just makes a bunch of these new agencies just like Justice Democrats. Justice Democrats didn't exist a cycle ago, and now they exist, and they're very strong, and they already do this, and they're not going to care at all if this type of, they're like, oh, we don't get to put, they're not going to care if they can't put incumbents in power. That's not what they're there for. So I think that the DNC is underestimating the value of these new incumbents, and they're underestimating what they're risking. But I think that they're making a risk because they don't think that there's another choice, which means, again, to the point I was making at the beginning, they're scared of a fair playing field.
Well, they're always going to be scared because when it comes down to it, let's look at these establishment candidates like Nancy Pelosi or good old Chuck Schumer. Can they really hold account to being a progressive champion or fighting for progressive policies?
Grandpa Glasses Schumer?
No, they're never going to do that. And they realize that they're being called out on it because you have a more informed public, because we have the internet, and we also can look at their voting records. And so when we have freshman congresswomen, like, for example, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she got into office, she was doing something that we've never even seen before. She was letting people know on social media what's happening in Congress and how things are run. We've never seen that before. Even I had to take a step back and say, like, oh, wow, so that's how our government's run. It's really inept. And they've been pulling this off since the founding of the Republic. That's how corrupt this system is. And now because the Democrats are reacting, do you really think that they can, to add to the point, I don't think they really can enforce any of these challenges.
This is an action you take when you've already lost.
Yeah.
Or maybe not already lost, but you're on the path to losing. You're like, I got to do something to change it. This is an action that someone takes when they don't have good actions to take.
Trying to cut their losses, trying to shore up what they have.
This is saying, okay, well, how can we stop the bleeding somehow? How do we stop our people from being voted out? Well, what if we blackmail and threaten all of the people that do all these things and say that if you work with this opposition and you have the audacity to do what's in the Constitution, we're just not going to do business with you anymore. And again, it's going to work for some groups, the ones that are already super tight. And I want to give another point to this, which is that I just reminded me of a conversation when Cenk Uygur was on, I think it was CNN, like a few months ago, and they were all moping because they're like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez isn't coming on to do interviews, and she owes us interviews. And Cenk had a great comeback where he just said, look, you weren't there at all for her. You never did a single interview for her at all when she was running and primarying Joe Crowley. You didn't care about her at all then. She built up her entire infrastructure without you. And I think a big thing to tie into what we're dealing with here is the other aspect of it is that most of these organizations that work with these people spend a huge amount of money on television ads. That's their business model, whereas AOC and all the new Democrats are using a social media model, which is getting way better results that are much more targeted, that are much cheaper. So like if you're like in a small district and you want to buy television ads, you have to buy them for like the whole area because of how television works.
Yeah, multiple states.
And let's face it, most of our generation and the next generation, we don't watch television anymore. We don't listen to radio. Traditional media is dead. Social media is what everybody uses.
They're banking on a system that's obsolete. That's really what it comes down to. They're telling people that are already in the club, that already spend money on television ads, which new Democrats don't really care about, just like Kit said, that you can't go and work with these people that do this thing that you don't really care about anyway, when all it's doing is exposing them for what they are, exposing the failure, exposing the fear, and strengthening the ability for the new Democrats to make something that's independent of the Democratic Party.
Do you want to know what else it's doing, too? It's also pushing all the centrist Democrats to the left. I mean, I'm not saying that they'll vote left, but I mean, when it comes down to politics, it's about power and using enough votes to actually stay in power. They can't use their centrist talking points and then back away from progressive policies. It's either you put up or we're going to elect you out of office. If you're not going to be a progressive champion, if you're not going to fight for progressive policies, then the American people and the voters in said districts or wherever will elect your challenger and then make sure that you're not in office ever again, because I think we're tired of it. We see the system for what it is. The Democratic and Republican establishment, they are friends with each other, and the establishment media always turns a blind eye to progressive candidates. They turned a blind eye to AOC, and as soon as AOC won her primary, what did the Democratic establishment media do, or at least those who are more in the liberal media do? They said, oh, it looks like we have to do research on AOC. All of them were saying that. It looks like we have to do some background checks on AOC. It looks saying? We got to find out who AOC is.
It's like they're terrible at their job or something.
Yeah, and now it's the DCCC trying to do this. You want to add one more point?
Yeah, I want to add just a couple more quotes from this story that I think are really good. The first one, it touches on the point that we're making already. And so this is Alex Rojas, who's the head of the Justice Democrats, talking about a challenge to the Democratic incumbent in Texas, Henry Cooler, I think that's how you say it. He says, make no mistake, they are sending a signal that they are more afraid of Ayanna Pressley and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez winning primary challenges than Henry Cooler, who votes with Trump nearly 70% of the time. Another quote I wanted to bring up from Representative Stephen Lynch, a Democrat from Massachusetts, who told The Intercept, the Democratic and Republican parties are commercial enterprises, and they're very much interested in their own survival. So this is a point we haven't really made yet, and he's saying the money race is probably more important to them than the issues race in some cases.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They care about money, they care about maintaining donors, they care about their own bottom line.
Remember, these agents make their commission based on how many TV ads. It's like, no, they'll get 5% of what's spent on TV ads. So they're built on a model that's decades old that's just crumbling.
And do you want to know who we could think about this for this model? Citizens United and McCutcheon's decision. Mm-hmm. Remember, we have the power to get money out of politics. That's the only way you can bring in real reform. We have to get money out of politics. If we don't, then the system still remains as is. And we can't afford that anymore. Get involved during this 2020 election cycle. Step up and do your part. All right.
Mia Lovely says the DCCC is irrelevant. Joe Crowley was going to be the new speaker. He outspent AOC 18-1 and had the DCCC's backing, yet he still lost.
Yeah,
good point.
Again, it's
good
all
point.
about, you have to realize, it's not
well
just
done.
about money. It's about the conversion. It's about, you can spend $100,000 on television ads that maybe only 5% of the people that see it are even in the district that's being voted on, or you could just go on Facebook or somewhere else or AdSense on Google and spend a fraction of that, target directly to the people in the district with ads that are completely targeted to them, and spend less money. And the same people that make that their commission don't make that commission, so they're not interested. Their model's falling apart. That's all.
Right on.
Let's watch it crumble.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll grab the popcorn. I'll get the beer, and we'll just watch it. And it'll be funny. And you guys can join us too while we watch it burn. Hey, did you like that video? Hit the subscribe button, hit that ring bell notification so that way you're informed when we upload more content to the Hard Lens Media YouTube channel.